I wanted to be a boy because I thought being a girl meant being sexually assaulted. When I was really little, my brother and I were playing near a park, and two men took us into a public restroom, and I was fighting and biting and screaming and scratching and doing everything I could to get away from them. They told me that I had to stop or they were going to cut my brother's penis off. And so I let them do whatever they wanted. So I did everything I could to try to be a boy. I was not going to be a girl anymore. That I was never going to let that happen to me again. And that the best way to do that was to be a boy. Because even though they had threatened my brother, they didn't sexually assault him. And so, in my mind, that was a way to keep myself safe. And I dressed in my brother's hand-me-downs. I became aggressive at school because as a little kid, trying to figure out, I was just a little kid, it was first grade, trying to figure out what it is that makes a girl and a boy, and what made it so the men hurt me and not my brother. And what could I do to be more like my brother so I wouldn't get hurt? I practiced standing up and became aggressive like the boys, and I tried to play with them, but the boys didn't really want me playing with them because I was just this weird girl who didn't really fit in and who was like almost acting exaggeratedly like a boy to sort of prove that I wasn't a girl, I guess, and that the girls didn't want anything to do with me, and I didn't want to be around them because I didn't want anybody to associate me with being a girl. And so I was just pretty isolated and alone. And my mom had to go in and meet with the principal and the school psychologist because the teachers were very concerned because I was rude and mean, and I really was turning into a bully to other girls, sort of to distance myself. And it makes me really sad now thinking about that I was really so mean to other girls because I just didn't want anything to do with being a girl. But I am so thankful that the school psychologist met with my mom, addressed that I had some issues rather than saying that I was born in the wrong body and that I should be a boy so that I wouldn't get sexually assaulted again. That I had some issues that I needed to work on. And it makes me so sad now that there are children who have issues, and instead of getting help, they're just told that they're born in the wrong body, which it confirms like that hatred, that self-hatred that they have. Like, I hated myself so much because my body had like betrayed me. And if they had told me to convert to being, if they had said, yes, you are a boy, you're in the wrong body, that would have just like confirmed how much I hated myself as a girl. And I have no doubt that if I had been at a time where the doctors had said that I could medically transition, that I would have in a second. I would have done anything I could to just not be a girl. And I am so thankful that I didn't. Because I was trying so hard to be a boy and I felt like I was a boy, I wanted to have a girlfriend. And so I saved up and bought her a ring, and we made out a couple of times, and we even engaged in sort of some petting. So she was my first girlfriend, and I guess in a way having a girlfriend felt very safe to me because I didn't trust men and boys, but having a girlfriend felt safe. And I didn't want to interact with girls as like one of the girls. And so she treated me like I was her boyfriend. But it was, for me, it was a way to have that kind of female companionship, but have it feel like it fit in with me being a boy. I had another girlfriend and we got more sexual. And again, a lot of it was just this sense of me defining myself as a boy. And since I was going to be a boy, I was going to have a girlfriend. And so I behaved as if I were a boy. And I probably was more sexually aggressive with her than I ever would have been, because I was trying to play the role of being her boyfriend. At some point I realized, like when I look back, I realized that I was not sexually attracted to them, but that I was engaging in this behavior because it felt safe. That seemed right to me, to the idea that, well, I'm gonna be a boy, I need a girlfriend. Like now when I start having feelings of discomfort or body hatred, I know where it's coming from. And so I have the skills now, I've learned the skills from therapists so that I can manage that. And so I don't hate myself, so that I don't have to self-harm, so that I don't feel like I'm in the wrong body. And all that came from therapists who helped me learn these skills. If I had gone to therapists and they had said, you're right, you're born in the wrong body, that would have just confirmed like every idea I had about how much I hated my body. And I know that there are some good therapists and bad therapists, but there's some really basic cognitive behavioral therapy techniques that can help people who have anorexia, who have body dysmorphia, who have gender dysphoria, to help them sort of stop focusing on their body hatred. Because I actually am in contact with a lot of people who have gender dysphoria. And even those who transition, they still have that. It doesn't go away. So even though people say that they're transitioning because they have gender dysphoria, it doesn't go away. It's that there's this mental health problem that they need help with. And so it's not like a cure. Transitioning isn't a cure for someone who has gender dysphoria. Realizing that there are all different reasons why kids develop gender dysphoria. And if you just tell them to transition, you're ignoring the cause. You're just putting that Band-Aid on and pretending like everything's okay, and it's not. And it's just gonna keep festering and getting worse until you actually discover, like, what's the cause of the gender dysphoria? Why is it that somebody hates themselves so much? Why is it that they hate their body so much? I have had a lot of women reach out to me who said they developed gender dysphoria because of sexual assault, or because they were being sexually abused by somebody in their family. I got a letter in the mail, and so I had sort of this intense response to the letter, and I thought, this can't be right. I must not be understanding this. They were going to introduce a conversion therapy ban, the legislator, in the upcoming legislative session. And I realized as I read through it that this was the kind of therapy that had helped me as a kid and would help other children who had gender dysphoria, and that it would, in essence, prevent children who had gender dysphoria from getting appropriate mental health services. So I tried to investigate it a little bit more and discovered that there had been conversion therapy bans in lots of other states, and that they were including gender identity, which meant that any child who had gender dysphoria would not be able to get therapy to help them resolve their gender dysphoria. I was just really concerned with the idea that children who have developed gender dysphoria as a result of a sexual assault, like I had, wouldn't be able to access therapy. I wasn't really a boy, and I wasn't really a girl. I was a kid who had some mental health issues that needed to be addressed. And what worries me is that if you're a kid who doesn't fit in at all, and there's this group that's going to say, come over here and you can fit in, that a child will gravitate towards that who is isolated and ostracized. But if they go to the LGBTQ support groups, they're encouraged to embrace their gender dysphoria. I guess it really hits because if they had those kind of groups when I was in school, I would have loved it. I would have loved having a group where I was accepted and embraced, that would have been so seductive. It would have been so like having a place where I could go, where I fit in. And what concerns me is that a lot of these groups are run by older adults who have mental health issues that they haven't dealt with. They're almost grooming children and encouraging them to embrace their dysfunction and to be sexualized. Like, it's this whole story that kind of encourages children to believe there's something wrong with them. When you have schools that are teaching kindergartners that it's possible to be born in the wrong body, that's just almost creating conditions for gender dysphoria. Part of the transgender movement is saying, well, if you don't like yourself, just change yourself. Most girls at some point have a time when they're angry at their body, where they don't fit in, or their body's developing in a way that they don't like. And if we tell kids like, well, if you don't like it, it's okay, you can just transition to the opposite gender, rather than teaching them that it's normal and natural to be sometimes uncomfortable with your body. And part of being human is learning to love yourself despite those difficulties or deficiencies or things that you don't like about yourself. Learning how to pee standing up doesn't make you a boy. Being aggressive and cussing and pushing other girls, that doesn't make you a boy. And having my hair short didn't make me a boy. And riding my bike and, being aggressive when I was playing sports, none of those things made me a boy. But we need to be saying, you are a girl, and girls can act in all these ways that sometimes boys act too, and it doesn't change the fact that you're a girl. So no matter how hard you try, you're still going to be a girl. So rather than trying to change yourself, how about if we figure out how to make yourself more comfortable with who you are? It's really easy to retrospectively, it's like you read a book and it suddenly all comes together. I didn't realize that I was developing gender dysphoria because of what happened. It wasn't like I was going around and telling people that I had this sexual assault happen and therefore I was acting like a boy. I didn't have that insight at all, because I didn't have the insight to know that a sexual assault can impact somebody that way. Like when the school psychologist was talking to me, I didn't say, oh, right, I had this sexual assault and that's why I'm acting like a boy. I didn't mention the sexual assault because I was so completely and utterly ashamed of it and completely freaked out by it, because it really messed up my brother and I's relationship too. I don't know if you can imagine, he was 2 years older than me, and up until that point, we were brother and sister, but he couldn't look at me. And I couldn't look at him after that. Our entire relationship fell apart. I feel like my life was going along, and then somebody put me in this brown paper bag that was completely dark and just shook it. And then opened it up, and my life was totally different. It took me a long time to realize that that's what wrecked my brother and I's relationship. After that experience, we stopped even acknowledging each other. It was like we couldn't look at each other. If I had been able to see a therapist who would have said, why are you engaging in these behaviors? They have to have somebody who can help figure that out. And that might be a parent or a teacher, but it might be a therapist who can go in and deconstruct what happened, so that you could say, oh, that's why, that's what happened. Of course, now that all makes sense. But at the time it didn't. At the time I was just mad and didn't want anything like that to ever happen again. And I was just acting out in a way that I thought would make me stronger and safer. Depending on how the laws are worded, they're not allowed to interfere with feelings, beliefs, or behaviors related to sexual orientation or gender identity. It's even possible that a therapist may not be able to help a child who's engaging in really dangerous sexual behaviors if laws like that are passed, which is pretty scary. When I was in high school, I went to a doctor and asked if I could get my tubes tied. I really did not think I wanted kids. And I didn't really want to put anybody through what I went through. It wasn't until, I guess, I graduated from college and I was working in a group home for people with disabilities. And when I saw my husband interacting with the clients, he was so kind and so gentle with them. And it was like, up until then, I never would have trusted somebody to have kids with. I ended up getting pregnant, and it was really interesting when we had the ultrasound. And part of me was incredibly scared because I know that girls are vulnerable. And so even during the ultrasound, I was kind of worried about her and thinking, boy, if she was a boy, she wouldn't have to worry as much about these issues that I had to deal with. When my daughter was born, I can't even tell you like how it was the first time in my life that I was proud of myself and my body and really happy to be a woman because I was able to create this beautiful person. And I just looked at her in this like, it was a sense of like, my body must be okay because it made this wonderful baby. I would never have that experience if I had medically transitioned. My body would be rendered like incapable of having kids. I don't even know how to explain it. Like this sense of love that I never had before. And it was this sense of human connection with my daughter. And I was like, so this is love. Like it was just this like amazing, like beautiful thing. Like she was so good for me too because I wasn't very social. I used to be really shy and I'd look down and people would come up to me and say, you have a beautiful baby. And how can you like not talk to someone who tells you you have a beautiful baby? And so I can't imagine the world without her. I think about like what my life would be like if I hadn't had children, if I had medically transitioned. I mean, I think about it, sometimes it gives me nightmares thinking about if that school psychologist way back when I was, in first grade had said, Erin is actually a boy who was born in the wrong body and started to medically transition me. And I can't even reconcile like what it would be because for me, my children have given me such joy and opened up the world to me. Having children kind of forced me to interact. Like all of a sudden I'm a mom. I can't just keep my baby in my home. And if I had transitioned, I would have just been able to keep being that way, being kind of so stuck in myself and so disassociated from the world. I loved being a mom in a way that I never thought I would. I nursed her, and that was an amazing experience because all of a sudden I was connected with my body in a way I never had been, and I was able to nourish her. I know having children isn't going to cure everybody of having gender dysphoria, but for me, I had sort of resolved and accepted the fact that I was female and kind of okay with it. But then as soon as I had my daughter, I was like, okay, this is what is being a woman. Being a woman is not being sexually assaulted. That's not what being a woman is, which is what I thought it was.